of the church, fasting and prayer. So I'm happy to join us in the liturgy, in the prayer, take the communion together, and complete our spiritual day.
Yeah, sure. Good morning, everyone. I'm honored to introduce today to not only a kind-hearted, sweet, supportive friend, but also he is a distinguished Toastmaster. He is a keynote, he's a public speaker, and he's a life coach for more than 2 decades, and he's expert with the emotional intelligence. And as you know, it's very important to be aware of our emotions, and that will help us to grow personally and to serve the Lord even better, right? So, without further ado, let's warm welcome Jack.
Thank you for the introduction. Thank you for having me here at your church, and I'm honored to be spending the next hour or 90 minutes of my life just to be here and learning from you, as well as teaching something that I am passionate about. I have a question for all of you today. Number one is, how are you feeling this morning?
Today?
Yeah, just now, right now. Right now, in this moment, in this time.
Yeah, no, we got some wind.
Feeling awesome.
Yes.
All right, how about you?
Yeah, very good. Thankful.
Awesome, very good. Okay, how about you?
Normal.
Not well?
Normal.
Normal, feeling normal. Okay, how about you, sir? Feeling good. Rehan?
I'm excited to have you here.
Excited.
I am.
Okay, and the back?
I'm feeling happy to see everyone today.
Okay.
She's happy.
Happy, you're happy, all right?
I'm relaxed. I'm looking forward for the presentation.
Absolutely. How about you, sir?
Feel fine. Fine.
Anthony,
It's fine.
It's fine.
is that one of the emotions?
You're feeling great?
Yes.
All right. Okay, how about you?
Tired and curious.
Tired and curious.
Yes.
All right.
I'm happy to be here.
Happy to be here.
Yeah, I'm exhausted a little bit, and I have a long day ahead, so I'm stressed out a little bit.
Okay, so you are feeling stressed.
Yeah, a little bit.
Very good.
Excited.
You're excited.
Yeah, the same. Excited also.
I would say excited to look at the PowerPoint.
And did I miss anyone?
You.
Yes.
You're just telling us that I'm lucky because I missed mine.
Not good lucky.
Not with me. I got credit for original. See, the question was that how are you feeling?
Yeah, I was just feeling lucky, but
Yeah.
I'm feeling excited to know, but I'm interested in the topic.
Okay.
Yes.
So how about you?
I feel peace and excited. I feel that I get some peace and excited to know more about this subject.
And the way I feel is I feel excited and very hopeful for the future, and also a feeling that comes within that says I'm making a difference in the community, and also the feeling that uplifting others is a good thing. Right? However, when you go through this talk, you will find out that some of you said that I feel good, some of you said I feel awesome, some of you said I'm fine, some of you said I'm normal. Those are not feelings. So that's the sad or the bad news to start with. However, we will go through this and figure out, because as humans and as a society, we have failed somewhere to recognize our own feelings. And this is extremely important, that we need to know how we are feeling. And this has not been taught in schools, So that as we were kids growing up, if we were told just like how to multiply and how to add, if we were told how to recognize our emotions, we would have been the best human beings that this world can see. But it does not happen. However, now that you are all here and you are going to be chartered to teaching the kids, this is something you can do to teach the kids the part of this emotional intelligence. And whatever the small thing that you can do from your Sunday school, and I know there's a big influence in the day school that they have that goes out there. I do know that the city of Roseville and the school districts have started to introduce the idea of emotional intelligence at the elementary school, so that we bring the kids up and raise them up with these values and these ideas, so that when they become adults, we don't have to deal with a lot of the issues that we see today. So with that, I'm going to introduce myself. So my name is Jack Nagendra. I am the emotional intelligence coach for the purpose of this particular session. I'm going to focus on that. I've been working on emotional intelligence for the last 20 years, and I've applied the emotional intelligence concepts to my own life. I've been teaching, and also I've been coaching people who are having emotional issues or emotional, they want to make it better of themselves. And that's what I'm on. And I do have to say that it has taken me a long time. It is not something that, it's a caution for all of us. It's a knowledge, but it just needs to be applied. Just like anything, right? If you want to be a good cook by watching how to cook on a YouTube, it's not going to make you a good cook, right? You can see how other people are cooking, but you have to cook yourself. You have to cut the vegetables. You have to know how to add the spices and whatnot. So that's the key from the emotional intelligence. Is what I want to accomplish today is to give you that knowledge and open up your mind to the idea of emotional intelligence and how it's beneficial and why is it required. And then you're going to be on your own journey of discovering all the elements of emotional intelligence. And you start working on it yourself, maybe a year, 2 years from now, you will be like, wow, this has changed my life. But it is going to change your life if you understand what it is and if you understand how to apply this and how the differences that it can make in your own life. So if you are wondering, okay, that's what I talked about, and a little bit of history about the idea of emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence in different forms does exist in a lot of cultures. Like Chinese culture, they have a similar thing from Schultz, and in the Christian culture, it's probably part of the Bible teachings that they talk about, and also in the Hindu culture, Gita, there's some elements of the emotional intelligence already existed in the cultures. However, the two professors, John Mayer and Peter Sally, so these are the two psychologists, one who was working for the University of New Hampshire, and Peter Sally was working at the Yale University. And what they did was they were amazed at something, which is people with average IQ, which is the intelligent quotient, people with average IQ outperform those with higher IQ 70% of the time. So this is what they discovered, and they started to look at everyone around. Like, look at your own community, right? So you may have someone with a very high IQ, very intelligent, maybe you got a doctor or a lawyer or a PhD, and then you have someone who may not have that higher level of education and credentials, but very successful in life, very happy in life. There is a difference we all see, right? So even though we are told that the education and having these degrees is going to get us there, but what we are seeing is that it's probably not true. But there are a lot of cases, like all the successful people, Bill Gates to Mark Zuckerberg, they all quit studying, and they started their business and became very successful. So they had this question, and they wanted to find out. Now this applies to anybody. Like if you are a Sunday school teacher, there are 20 of you, and then you all have different IQs, but one may be ahead, one may be average, one may be above average. What distinguishes them is your ability having the emotional intelligence. How much of emotional intelligence that you have is going to separate you from the other person. If a teacher, the same thing. If a student, the same thing. If you're a politician, they need a lot of emotional intelligence. Otherwise, they're going to blow up like what happened yesterday. So we need to make sure that everyone has the higher level of emotional intelligence. There is no 90%, 95%. We always say higher level of emotional intelligence because it depends on individuals, it depends on situation, it depends on cultural background, and also this takes a lot of time to build this because it comes down to your habit. So what they found out is that in 1990, they are the ones who came up with the theory of emotional intelligence. So if you look at the word emotional intelligence, these are the two people who are responsible for coming up with that name, emotional intelligence, because we already knew that IQs, and now they coined the term EQ in 1990. For several years, this particular theory was just sitting in an abstract or a paper that was journal, until Daniel Goleman, who is also an American psychologist, but author and a science journalist for New York Times. So he picked up this and he actually wrote a book. And the book is called The Emotional Intelligence, Why It Can Matter More Than IQ. That's the book he wrote, okay, in 1994. And as soon as that book came out, it was a bestseller. Everybody started to read, everybody started to work on it. But for the last 20 plus years, it has made a profound impact across the world and across the humanity as well. So what he came back in his book, he said, by teaching people to tune into their emotions with intelligence and to expand their circle of caring, we can transform organizations from inside out and make positive difference in our world. Right? So here in the book, he talked about organization. Now, we left it very open. It's not about Facebook or Google. Organization could be the church. Organization could be your home with a family of 20 people you're related to. Organization could be your community groups or nonprofit. It can be anything. However, as long as the people are in these organizations, as long as the people, there are only two conditions. Only two conditions. As long as we have brain and we want to live in a society, there is no alternative. We must have emotional intelligence. As long as we have brain and we want to live in a society other than me, that means society other than me. If I want to live by myself in an island with nobody else, maybe it doesn't matter because I'm just by myself. If I'm getting anything at myself, I get it myself, or I bark at a tree, and that's all I can do, right? So that's the key. Is the why this is important is because take it from me that as long as we have brain and as long as we want to live in a society, we all need to have a very higher level of emotional intelligence. It does not mean that we don't have it. We do have emotional intelligence, but our level of emotional intelligence may vary. And I think it's important for us to recognize where we are and then get to a different place where we want to be. So that's the journey that we're going to talk about today. So what is emotional intelligence? Well, it's very simple, right? It's the ability to identify and manage one's emotions as well as the emotions of others, right? So then let's take a look at this. It looks very simple. So we're talking about abilities, okay? So we're talking about your ability, my ability to identify, and it's also not or, but identify and manage my own emotions. It's my ability to identify and manage my emotions, as well as this says that I'm responsible for managing your emotions as well. Right? So I may be really good in managing my emotions, but if I'm pissing you off all the time, that's not emotional intelligence. Okay? So it goes both ways, right? So the condition here is that it's not just good to say I'm highly emotionally intelligent. I can recognize my emotions, I can manage myself. However, whenever I speak, I hurt somebody. Whenever I speak, I impact or influence other person's emotion, that means I'm not emotionally intelligent, right? That's what it says. So this has got two sides to this, self and the others, me and other people. So I want to pay attention to that. It's the ability. When we talk about ability, it comes down to your own knowledge and your willingness to take on this, as well as developing those required skills that will tell you how to do these things as you go forward. Now, why should we really care? That is the question. Oh, this is all great. Some American psychologist came up with it in 1990. Somebody wrote a book about it, and somebody read the book, and they think it's valuable. But why do we all care about this? That's the question. Probably you're not asking, but it's in your brain, in your mind, right? I think I want to give you some 6 things to think about. But why is this emotional intelligence is extremely important? If we are highly emotionally intelligent, if we develop those skills, it leads to improved self-awareness. So what does this really mean? Self-awareness, knowing that whether I like coffee over tea, or knowing whether I like a sandwich or a pizza, is that self-awareness? A lot of people get confused with that when we talk about, do you have self-awareness? The self-awareness is not about what you prefer, not about what you choose over something. Self-awareness we're talking about is knowing how you're feeling. Are you aware of everything that's happening in your body? Are you aware of how your organs are reacting to some situations? Are you aware of your ears are becoming red in a situation? Are you aware that you're having a shortness of breath? Are you aware your heartbeat is going up? So we need to know this. Right? So we need to know what's happening inside the body. So we want to make sure that we have self-awareness. Why is it important? Because once we know, then it is a mechanism as humans, and the evolution has given us to take some action about it. But if you don't know, you can't take action. Right? That's the first part. And then also it gives you the enhanced self-regulation. That means if you are feeling certain level of emotions, and we'll talk more on that, then it will help you to regulate that. It will help you to manage that. And how, we'll talk more about it. And why is it important? It's because if you're in a tense situation, if you're feeling stressed, if you're feeling tired, there are things that we need to know what it can do, right? And if we know that, we can better manage it, right? Like, for example, you're driving on a freeway and then the map says there's an accident. Oh, now you know there is an accident. Either you can take a detour or you can call somebody and say, I'm going to be late for 30 minutes. But knowing that there is an accident is extremely important for us. So that's the awareness where we can make that happen. A better relationship, because it comes down to a relationship. If you want to live in a society, we've got to have a relationship. Whether the relationship is with parents as a child, a spouse relationship, sibling relationship, a neighborhood relationship, community relationships, we must build a relationship with one another. If we are not highly emotionally intelligent, we will not be able to build a relationship. Right? You can start and meet somebody today, but if you're not emotionally intelligent, 3-4 months later, that person stopped calling you. Or you might have seen this thing happen in your own life. Oh, what happened? I don't know. We were good friends like 3 years ago. Something happened. Right? And all of this is extremely important to keep up with the relationship. We have relationship problems we have seen even within the family. Even within the spouses, they don't talk to each other. There are issues. The kids don't talk to each other with parents. So by being highly emotionally intelligent will help us improve and have a better relationship. And it will bring us a strong communication skills as well. If we are able to describe how we are feeling, let's say if I'm really upset about something and I want to describe to my wife or my spouses and say, hey, this is what I'm feeling. So it is important to communicate that, important to clearly identify to someone and say, no, I don't feel bad. No, I don't feel good. I don't feel bad. Maybe instead of the bad and the good labels, but very specifically talk about it. Okay, I'm being annoyed. I'm feeling hurt, and this is what happened. That will become more important so that when we say it, other people can take some action about it. Right? A lot of times we assume the other person knows, but 99% of the time, other person doesn't know. That's why. And increased leadership abilities. This is extremely important as well. Whether you're a Sunday school teacher or you are an employee at an organization, a day job, this will help you become a better leader at your organization, wherever you are. And how do you know you're going to become a better leader? Because people want to spend time with you. People want to follow you. People want to take your advice. People want to mentor them because they see these characteristics. They see this value in how you are reacting, how you are behaving with emotional intelligence. And finally, it's greater adaptability, right? So as we all know, when we talk about the survival of the fittest, familiar with that phrase, Darwin? So survival of the fittest is the idea that if we don't adapt, we're going to die. Okay? So as humans, we have always adapted. As humans, whether you're living in a cold country, we have always adapted to building a house, and then we go inside, we put on the heaters. We have always changed things around the environment so that we can be more adaptive, right? So we move from, I see, probably you come from a different country to the U.S., so different cultures. We have already adapted to this. We adapted to this culture, we adapted to this environment. Some people may come from very hot climate, living in a cold place. We are adapting to that. So the same thing happens with having a higher level of emotional intelligence will help us to accept the fact that we need to adapt. So that when there is a change, we don't really think about running away from it. We can handle it head on. We can take care of it. So these are the 6 top reasons I came up with and why one should develop an emotional intelligence. Now, since emotional intelligence, the 2 words, has emotion, right? The first word is emotional intelligence, there's emotion in it. So it's important for all of us to understand what it is that we're talking about. So emotions are reactions that human beings experience in response to events or situations. Right? Now, is that different than feelings? What do you all think? Is emotion same as feeling, or is feeling is different than emotion?
Your feelings lead to emotions.
Your feelings lead to emotions. Okay? So before we began, I asked the question, how are you feeling? And there were different responses to that question. And this will give you some idea that you're feeling, but you're not reacting to it. Right? When you react, that really becomes an emotion. But we do want to know, before that reaction comes out of us, if we know how we are feeling, then we can better control that response that comes out of us. That's the key distinction we want to make sure that you understand. The emotions or reactions that human beings experience in response to events or situations. Now, these events or situations, they can be very positive situations, like your kid graduating from high school, or your brother getting a new job. Those are very good events as well. Or there may be situations where somebody is getting fired from the job, or somebody had an accident, somebody broke up. These are all the bad experiences that we can have. So these emotions, these events can be both on the positive and then on the negative as well. Now I want to take a look at a few emotions that are extremely common that we know, but there are a lot more emotions we don't know, we don't use it at all. And if there's a movie I encourage you to watch, it's called Inside Out. And there's Inside Out, and then also there's Inside Out 2. And Inside Out, when the first came, it gave people a visual of what the emotions look like. And then Inside Out 2 is also fantastic when they introduce the new emotions into the characters, and it just talks about it. Now here is something I want to talk about is the anger. So this is an emotion, okay? and a strong feeling of displeasure or annoyance, and often active opposition to an insult, injury, or an injustice. Right? What am I feeling? So when something happens, like it's very displeasure or annoyance, but you feel like you're helpless, you're cheated, or you feel like there's something happened you were not expecting, it's unpleasant, that's when we develop this emotion called anger. Now, all of these emotions that we're going to talk about has been evolved over thousands of years as human beings. And now, they all have a function. If you're wondering, I don't know why I'm always angry, or I don't know why I'm always smiling, right? Because all of these emotions have a function, and the function is just to protect us. Right? So we needed all of these emotions when we were hunter-gatherers, when we were living in the jungle, forest with no housing, and we needed these emotions to help us survive. Otherwise, we would have been dead. Right? If you don't get angry, and if you don't fight the other person, you will be dead. So we needed these emotions to do that. However, we are in 2025. Some of these emotions don't really have purpose. But it was maybe 100,000, 200,000 years ago, but they don't have really any purpose. Another one is sadness, right? It is emotional pain associated with or characterized by feeling of disadvantage, loss, despair, grief, helplessness, disappointment, and so on. Right? This is how we feel. This is called sad. And also we have happiness. Right? Someone said I'm happy. Happiness is a feeling of pleasure and positivity. When someone feels good, proud, excited, relieved, or satisfied about something, that person is said to be happy. Another one I want to talk about is surprise. Right? This is also an emotion. Sometimes we all get surprised. And it says, an example of surprise is hiding behind a corner and jumping out as someone walks past you. So, right? So, surprise. We have that. And also, disgust is another emotion, which is a feeling of aversion towards something. We can feel disgusted by something we perceive with our physical senses, by actions or appearance of people or even by the ideas. We can get disgusted with a foul smell. We can get disgusted with someone talking trash about another person. We can feel disgusted with all the unethical things that is happening. So we do feel and express those. Obviously, we have fear. Now, one of the things you noticed is that all of these emotions I put out, there was only one thing that was very positive, which is happiness. Everything else I put out was anger, sadness, disgust, fear, surprise. They're all negative emotions. Now, on an emotional wheel, the negative emotions dominate. And this is how we grew up as human beings. Because all of these negative emotions had a purpose. Right? If you are fearful, then you can decide to run, you can decide to stay or hide, or you can do things like that, take action. But we don't need to do that anymore. I'm not saying completely remove everything, but I'm saying we need to tone it down. Right? Our anger needs to come down, our fear needs to come down, and then no one is going to get after us. So the question is, okay, we know these are the emotions, but where do they come from? Does anyone have an idea where do these emotions come from?
Your sympathetic nervous system.
Your
Your nervous system.
your nervous system.
Your
Our brain and thoughts.
Brain and thoughts, okay?
Hormones.
Hormones, okay.
From the limbic, is that right? Isn't it from the limbic system?
Yeah, it's all associated with brain.
Well, there are specific receptors that you get it first, and sometimes we acknowledge it on the spot when we act, but sometimes we wait more until we analyze it more, and that gives us more of the emotional intelligence.
Hold that thought. We'll talk about it. So this is.
I have a question.
Yes.
Are these what you share emotions or feelings, or are they the same? Because you were saying feelings about some of them.
Yes. So the question is, how emotions and feelings are different.
Yeah.
Okay, the simple answer is the emotions are psychological and the feelings are physiological. Okay, so how do you feel? You need to know how your body is reacting. If you're watching somebody fight, how do you feel? Your stomach will turn. You feel like throwing up, right? If there's a blood, some people just run away. But that's the feelings which is physiological. How your senses and how your organs are reacting to that situation.
So my emotion is disgusted, but my feeling is I'm feeling like
Feeling is internal, emotionally
Sick.
external.
sick.
Right.
Okay.
But if you can catch your feeling, then you can change your psychological outcome. Right? So the question of where do they come from, and this is what I got. Usually there is a situation, and in that situation, let's take for example that when we look at the anger as an emotion, how does this particular thing work? Is that there is a situation that I'm getting late to my work, and I'm on the freeway and I'm driving and it is completely packed, and I'm getting really angry, right? So what happens is, in that situation, thoughts are running in my head. Okay? What could be the thoughts that are running in my head? I'm sitting in the car and say, I'm going to be late to the meeting. My boss will be upset. I'm a failure. I should have left 30 minutes before. Look where my phone is not with me. It's in my bag. And I'm going to let down everybody. And what if I lose my job? So with just a simple situation of being in the traffic jam, we can really create a lot of thoughts in our brain, right? And that's what happens is the mental process of ideas that arise in that particular situation, right? And that's what leads to emotion. But I know I'm angry. Now I'm angry in a situation which is either I'm angry about myself, that I didn't take action last night to set the alarm, or I'm angry with my spouse that she didn't wake me up in time, or I'm angry that somebody set the meeting up 8 o'clock in the morning. So we're trying to think about ways that goes outside of us. So this is what happens, right? The situation, there's a thought that comes in our head, and then that's what it drives through our emotion. Okay? So what does it mean? How does the emotion come from? Thoughts create your emotion. So if you don't remember anything in what I'm talking about, just remember those 3 words. Thoughts create emotion. Okay? Nothing else. And why is that important? I'll talk about it here. Usually there is a sequence. For example, when there is a situation, we identify the context of the problem, and then thoughts comes into our head, and then there is a certain level of emotions that we display. Now in that situation of being in a traffic jam, I'm in that situation, all of these thoughts are coming in my head, and I have a very emotion which is I'm really angry about somebody, or I'm very sad that I won't be in a meeting. So I'm probably having not just one emotion, but multiple emotions are coming in. So in that situation, right, I may make a decision. And the decision could be that I'm going to take an exit. Or the decision could be that I'm going to call somebody and say, you did not wake me up this morning. All right? I'm going to do something with that decision. And then we will take that action based on that decision. And then the result is something that we never expected. Right? We never get to the result. That's why people say that when you're emotionally charged, take a deep breath. And some culture they say, count 10, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 10 before you say anything. Because when you do use these techniques, you're just calming your brain down, so that when you calm your brain down, what happens is that it will stop going crazy with different thoughts. It will either eliminate some thoughts or it will reduce those thoughts to one or two where you can manage. That's exactly what will happen. Now, the question is, a lot of people have told me that I am who I am. I am like this, right? Some people say they're always yelling and they'll say, oh, I'm born like this. I'm like this. My dad used to be like that. My whole family is like this. Or some people will be always crying. They get very sensitive about everything. And they will say, oh, it's all genetic, right? My mom used to always cry about anything, everything. Is that really true? Probably not. So this is what I think I want to talk about is that situation, whenever we are in a situation, and when we see these thoughts are coming in, if we know what these thoughts are, then we can change those thoughts. Right? So this step is extremely important. We're going to talk about emotional intelligence. It's exactly what we want to do here. So if I'm sitting in a freeway, I'm just completely packed, and I'm running late to my meetings, and my thoughts are coming in and saying that I am a failure, I'm not going to make it to this meeting, I'm not setting a good example for my team. All of these thoughts are coming up. But is there a way, can I change those thoughts? Can I force myself to change those thoughts? Initially, when we talk about changing these thoughts, it may look like we're forcing it. But when you do it for a few months and few years, you don't have to force it yourself. Your brain will automatically do it. It's like driving a car. Have you ever think about closing a door? No. Have you ever think about putting a key in the ignition and starting? No. You just let the car start moving. Because your brain has automated the whole process. Unlocking the car, opening the door, sitting in the car, putting on a seatbelt, starting the car, all of these steps, your brain has automated. But when you started the first time driving, imagine how it was. You forgot seatbelt, you forgot parking brake, and then you started to drive off. Instead of applying brake, you applied acceleration, you hit somebody. All of this happened because when we were beginning to learn this process, but after a few years, look where we are, right? We don't even think about it. A lot of times we leave home and we go to a mall, we don't even remember what was going on from that distance. Right? This is what happens. So if we can change the thought, that means we can change our emotions. If we are feeling angry, and if we can catch what those thoughts are creating my anger, then I can change those thoughts, right? And then change those thoughts, and then it will give you different emotional response for us, okay? So this is the concept, and now here is the question. Who is responsible for my emotions? Or who is responsible for his emotions? Can you
Myself.
Right. So this is the second idea after remembering that the thoughts create emotions, and this is the idea that we being not more than me, I always say, I am responsible for my emotions. You are not. Okay? And how many times we have said, okay, you made me angry, right? We just said, right? Yeah. Or your action was disgusting. Or, you know what, you made me very sad. Or sometimes say, you know what, just being with you makes me very happy. So that means we are saying other people are responsible for my emotions, right? And this is a habit, how we grew up with. But instead, we need to start looking at and say, whether I'm experiencing a positive emotion or a negative emotion, I'm responsible. So by just reframing that I feel angry instead of I'm angry makes a lot of difference. We are thinking about it, right? This is what it says. So again, who is responsible for our emotion? Ourselves, and not anybody else. So if you understand this idea, if you understand this concept, then there is no reason for any of us to be upset with another person.
Okay, can I have a question here?
Yes.
Hypothetically, I'm talking to someone and this person is talking in a disrespectful way, have loud voice, accusation, and I'm aware enough that I start feeling anger because what I'm hearing is not right, is not true. So I have this idea in my mind, I have these emotions, but these emotions all comes from the disrespect I'm receiving. So I know it's my responsibility to take care of my emotions, but it was a reaction of somebody else's action.
Good point. So let me ask you a question. So the situation that we are talking about is, we go back to the slides here. So the situation is that somebody talking to you in a high pitch, disrespectful way. That is the situation, right?
Right.
And what is the thoughts that running in your head at that moment? What are you thinking?
I'm thinking that I don't deserve that disrespect.
Okay, so you're thinking you don't deserve it.
And I think they can deliver same message in a different way.
Okay, so you're expecting the other person to change.
Yeah.
Okay, and then what else you're thinking?
I'm thinking just slap that crap out of them because this is not that disrespectful. Because if I'm respectful to you, I'm expecting to be respectful to me. So the thought is like, why?
But you can only control yourself.
Yeah.
But this is, I'm talking about emotion. This is
Yes.
all came on my mind right away, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Oh yeah.
no, there's something in a situation like that. So
Jesus wasn't
how would-
alive, he would never go to heaven.
Right.
in situations like that, there's first thing is why is this person
Yeah.
doing that, right?
Yeah.
It's not like somebody comes to you and starts yelling, right? Something would have happened, something would have triggered for that person.
Okay.
Assume that this person is not emotionally intelligent. Assume that this person doesn't understand anything related to feelings or emotions. This person is an average person. But you are an emotionally intelligent person. And you're with this person and you're seeing this person getting agitated. Okay? So the question that we always have to ask is that why is this person behaving the way this person is behaving? Okay? So instead of thinking that, oh, I deserve better respect, or I deserve to be treated differently, and or this person should be doing this. We are thinking all of these thoughts. I think my first thought comes is that if there's anybody coming and yelling at me and say, I'm going to listen. I'm going to quietly listen to everything that this person has to say. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to acknowledge and say, so-and-so, hey John, I acknowledge your feeling. Are you feeling helpless? Are you feeling that you were cheated? Are you feeling that you're scammed? We want to engage in this conversation because, again, remember, so that person...
So are you using this moment, I'm sorry for interrupting, but are you using this moment to educate them about their feelings?
No, not educate them about their feelings.
So controlling my thoughts.
Correct.
I'm changing my
You're
thoughts
changing your thoughts.
from they shouldn't be doing this to why are they doing
Correct.
this? So I'm controlling my thoughts, I'm changing my thoughts right now.
Yep.
What they're doing because they are angry and there's some assumption and that's why they came off with scenario. They come up with like 1, 2, 3, 4. This is what we're mad about. So it's obviously there's a reason behind it.
But the scenario in your mind.
No, they're talking about it. No, I'm saying they came, like, let's say hypothetically, hey, you were Rehan, you were in charge of doing so and so, and you didn't do what you're supposed to do, and next time you have to do it in this and this way. So they come with fact that I didn't do my job, but the way they came it was disrespect, and I'm not even supposed to do what I did in the first place. So again, it's hypothetically, guys.
Yeah.
So if someone came off on me with accusation and the way very disrespectful, this is how I'm gonna feel disrespected. Mm-hmm. So with using this strategy, I want to ask them why you're doing this. This is what you're saying.
So my thoughts is instead of saying they're disrespecting me in my head, I'm gonna think changing my thoughts. That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, say why.
Yeah.
Why are they doing that? It's not about me, it's about them.
We need to have the
So
different
don't take it
conversation.
personally, it's about them and not about me.
Right. So
And how can I control my emotions in that situation instead of reacting back to the disrespect?
And you're changing it to benefit. You want to understand what's wrong about you so you can change it too. That's why he was saying, he was asking, I acknowledge that you're upset. I acknowledge that you're feeling sad. So all these are feedback for you to kind of benefit yourself if you want.
So the situation like that, if anybody is yelling at me or upset with me, my first question to them is, hey, you have to acknowledge. The most problem starts if you don't acknowledge other person's feeling. Okay, if somebody is crying, you have to acknowledge, I'm sorry, I see you're crying, is there anything I can help you with? If somebody is yelling, you acknowledge that, I see that you're displaying some behavior of anger, is there anything I did? You can also straight ask that question too. Or can you help me understand your situation better? Because a lot of times when they talk about things, their emotions will change.
I also think that person's perception towards you should not override your perception towards yourself.
Of yourself, yeah.
Because if it overrides it, then I'm going from the emotion to the action to the decision, and I'm punking him in his face and game over.
Yeah, oh yeah. Oh yeah.
One second, guys.
I'm not done. I feel that maybe you're upset right now. Let's calm down. Let's talk some other time.
We can't say that. Yeah, we can't say calm down.
Okay.
So that's very offensive.
I'm sorry. I just wanted to listen. I wanted to listen to what Rami was going to say. Can you continue, please? Because I was engaged in that.
So what I'm saying is, his or her opinion to you shouldn't override. It should be respected, should be acknowledged, should be thought of, but it should not override your perception towards yourself. And hey,
How you should
I
be.
think like what he said, I think you are kind of frustrated. Then I understand. I'm not quite sure why are you coming from, but let's talk about it. Then you can analyze it. At that situation, you are moving the thing from you're thinking about his situation to think about what's going on, where the outcome is going to be, or what the outcome is going to be. Like there is a story in the Bible that 10 people went to a place, and it's the same place, but 8 people out of the 10 saw it differently than 2 people out of the 10.
Right.
The 10 people saw the same thing, the same situation, the 10 people were kind of recognized off of the tribes of Israel. Why did the 2 see it differently than the 8?
Because maybe they're emotionally intelligent.
Because they believe, and the 10 got the message before they even went to that place. Got the same message. But 2 of the 10 believed in it. 8 of the 10 did not believe in anything. So this is where you're going to hold your thoughts strongly on it and analyze it more.
I believe it's smart enough to, this is whatever people do or their action don't affect you. I mean, don't affect your confidence in yourself. However, it's still frustrating.
Correct.
Especially if you acknowledge and use I statement like, hey, this is how I felt disrespectful.
Correct.
For the way you're saying to me. And guess what? They came off like, oh, it's just a reaction to what you did. Some people will defend their mistakes to death just to prove they're right.
I also think that, because these situations are happening daily and sometimes even multiple times a day, right? So we also have to look at what is ahead of us and give it an appropriate amount of energy for the situation, right? Like, is this my husband? Is this my child? No. So, like, I also can't allow myself to, get all into it because it's going to affect me, So I'm like, okay, this is a coworker. I just gotta get here till 5 and I'm gonna leave. So I just have to just keep it flowing and keep it good. Because I can't I'm also not expecting this person to understand me. Right? So I'm also, and so you also are gonna take what they're saying with a grain of salt and always trying to tap into your sense of calmness quickly. I think this is a good tool and it's a training. but like you have to kind of tap into a calmness, or like when you're being attacked, I think, because when you're calm, you make better decisions and can think and make an action that you're gonna like. And then that's how the whole situation can change. Because then if you approach it calmly and your response, because it doesn't matter what emotion you feel. You can feel any emotion. You can feel anger. You can, the Bible tells us this, like, you can be angry, but do not sin, right? So we have to separate our emotion from our action, right? So you can allow yourself to feel whatever, but you can't allow yourself to act on that. And then after the situation, and we see this in the Bible too, like it says, like Jesus sat with himself, like, and that shows the importance of sitting and reflecting, right? So, and then when you go to that reflection period after this, like altercation or whatever, and you notice your emotions are high, and then you have to then you reset the perspective. Like, okay, that's just a coworker. There must have been some misunderstanding, so I'm not gonna give this so much. Right, and kind of adjust.
Very true. Yeah. This is exactly what we're talking about. And have you watched, okay, this is not political, but I want to use the example to see what happened yesterday at the White House. I'm not saying I'm for or against, but I'm only saying is that using that as an example, right, look at what happened, right? There's a situation. People are sitting there and trying to solve the biggest conflict that we have today. Peace deal, $500 billion, and then there are all these thoughts running in their head. One person's thoughts ran in their head was that the other person was not thanking the other person. Yeah. This is running in their head. And the whole thing came out of the mouth. And then the emotion was that the other person was upset that this person is not thanking me enough, and then they made a decision to fight. They made a decision to say, you don't have this card, and then what's the result? Everybody walked away, no peace deal. See? So you have fortunate enough yesterday to watch this, and not watch it, watch on YouTube, how emotional intelligence could have solved this world peace issue if the people in that meeting, 3 of them, were not taking the action that you're taking. They were all giving emotion, but they took actions. They made the decisions, and the decisions was to cancel the meeting. Decision was to leave the discussion, and finally, what we have observed is that they don't have the peace.
But at a point, right? If you're gonna take that example. I think the Ukrainian president was kind of like threatening. He's like saying, you don't see what's going to come to you. And they took it as offensive, right?
Well, again, I want to dive into it. I think the individual position doesn't matter, but what we saw and what happened is that they started out with, this is what we wanted to achieve, but at the end, the result was different. Now, what changed from the intention of achieving peace to everybody walking out with no peace, something happened in between, and this is a perfect display of emotions, decisions, and actions that humans can take, which can have a tremendous impact on this. So now how much time are you giving me?
Oh, yeah, thank you.
How much time?
Oh, well.
We're just starting. So this is what we talked about is the understanding that we are responsible for our emotions. Always keep in mind that if you keep saying to your child that, hey, John, you're making me mad. No, he is not making you mad. Okay, if you're blaming your spouses and saying that you always make me angry at dinner time, no, your spouse is not making you angry at dinner time. You're choosing to be angry, that's all.
And wives too, just fix that situation.
All the husbands are fake.
So this is after 15 minutes of setting the stage. So we're going to look at what emotional intelligence is. So we only touched on emotions right now, but there's a piece which is the intelligence piece that we need to be aware of. Right? Let's talk about emotional intelligence. So emotional intelligence has 4 pieces to it that we need to master. One is self-awareness, that we're talking about understanding our emotions and their impact. This is exactly what we just talked about, right? But if we were aware, then we will take different actions. Then self-management is a piece that talks about regulating our emotions and behaviors effectively. If we were to do that, then we can solve a lot of problems even before it becomes. And social awareness, recognizing and understanding others' emotions. Like Raham, you're talking about a person coming and yelling at you and all that, but there is an element of social awareness that you and I need to have. That's what we're going to talk about, to avoid anything that's happening like the way you hypothetically were explaining. And then bottom line is relationship management, right? Building and maintaining healthy relationships. So if you and I develop these skills, that's the result that we're going to see. We're going to have better relationships at work, better relationship at home, better relationship in our neighborhood, better relationship in our community. So what's self-awareness? The question here is that, are you aware of your emotions, triggers, and responses? So you're talking about, you're getting angry because you thought that you deserve something different. You thought that you didn't respect. So that is your trigger.
Yeah, maybe.
That is your trigger. So as long as you know that somebody says or does something to me, which I don't deserve, that's a trigger for you. So knowing that trigger, you can manage it.
Yeah.
So we're talking about self-awareness. What can we do? Right? This is all great when it comes to theory. This is how it works, but is there anything we can do about how do we build self-awareness?
Education. Education. Know about it, like learn about it like we're doing right now.
So awareness, in building self-awareness is through awareness, which is education, and also embracing these ideas, because if you don't embrace the idea, you may not follow through. So embrace that. There are a few things I want to talk about, and there are many more things you can do to build self-awareness. Number one is seek feedback. Always. Right? So if you are a manager at a work and you have 5, 6 staff working for you, make sure that you always ask feedback from them about how you're doing. Mm-hmm. It's not always that you're telling them how bad they're doing or how good they're doing. Ask them. Right? If you're working in a community and you're a lead of an event that you're putting together and you have 20 volunteers, then you're going to sit there and stand there and give them a certificate of volunteers they've done, but talk to them on how you did in their opinion or in their mind. Get those feedback. It's extremely important. Once they give you the feedback, you're going to help better self-manage yourself. So, again, Toastmasters. When you look at Toastmasters, we have this something called the speech evaluators. They're sitting there, they're very critical. They were going to count every ahs and ums and everything that we say, and they're going to at the end say, 2 ahs, 2 ums, 2 like, 2 so's, right?
3 no's.
That's the feedback. We need the feedback. Once we know that we are doing something, then we can take action. Mm-hmm. Many times, one of my staff used to observe several years ago and say, Jack, have you noticed that you clear your throat a lot while you're speaking? And I'm like, oh, I never noticed that. that feedback I needed. Yeah. If that person had not told me, I would be doing that until somebody tells me. Now, should I be offended because somebody tell me that? No. This person is saying what this person observed, not adding any advice or opinion to it. Right? They're just saying what they're saying. So ask feedback. It's going to be very helpful. And journal. Journaling is extremely helpful. If you're feeling some emotions, write it down. Why did you? What happened? The situation was. What was your thoughts? And what did you do with it? Okay, write it down. Because writing it down reinforces to your brain all of these past experiences that will help you be better self-aware. Observe and absorb. So we observe things, but we may not observe it. So we observe a situation, but are you observing anything from that situation? That's extremely important to see, okay, what is it I'm watching here? What is it I'm seeing? Okay, how is it beneficial to me? What is it I'm learning out of this? You want to observe this. Like, you're all sitting here and observing this presentation. Are you observing the knowledge? Are you observing the takeaways? That helps you do that. And feel it. Right? So when you're in a situation, and if you're getting really angry, can you feel it? Can you feel what's happening in your body? It's hard, I'm telling you. It's hard to feel, but somebody can see you're getting angry. Right? There are senses. Your ears may become totally red, your cheeks may be red, you may be shaking. There are physical things that happen. So, but knowing that, oh, my ears are red, that awareness from inside, even though there's no mirror to tell you, that's what we want to make it as part of our self-awareness. And finally, watch yourself. I'm not saying you just go to Walmart and buy a mirror and just keep it in front of you and then walk around with a mirror. But watching ourselves is an extremely important tool that we have. Is every time, it's when we start thinking about watching ourselves, like if I'm standing, I should develop the skills such a way that I can see how I'm standing, right? Whether my left collar, this collar is down or up, or something is folding here, or I'm standing straight and my feet are wide apart. I need to be able to watch myself what I'm doing. And this is extremely important for developing those self-awareness. Because a lot of times you have seen in a meeting, people are shaking their legs. So they don't know. They don't know that they're shaking their legs. And I had one of the employees, this person's favorite was clicking the pen. Okay, so I used to stop meeting and say, okay, are you done? They're doing things, but they are not aware that they're doing it. So watching ourselves, if somebody has put a mirror in front of them and says, do you see what you're doing? You're clicking your pen, or you're shaking your legs, or you're tapping on this, then they know that it's happening. But building that, watching is extremely important. So once we know what our triggers are, once we have a feedback mechanism that tells other person can tell us that what's happening, then we can start managing it. Right? So what we do is, self-management is the second element of the emotional intelligence. We want better control our emotions so that we can handle stress and anxiety more efficiently, avoiding overreaction. So this is exactly what we want. As Ram, as she's getting really worked up to just beat this guy crap out because this person is being disrespectful. So we want to be able to manage ourselves, because if somebody is upset, they're yelling, but if we start yelling, I don't think we're solving any problems there. But yes, acknowledging other persons, but managing ourselves to the extent that we ask the question, okay, I see you're behaving this way, can you explain what's going on? Can you explain, help me understand that I can help you in this situation? Right? So what can we do? There are a few things you can do. This is a classic from any cultures, right? Lesson from others. So one of the examples that I grew up with is that you know that the fire is hot. You don't have to put your hand there to experience for yourself. If someone has put their hand and burned it, learn from them. Right? If you see that someone has been yelling at somebody and that person, that anger has never resulted in anything really positive for that person, learn from that person. You don't have to learn by yourself, but there are ways you can do that. And the change is coming. This is extremely important. When I get on the freeway every day in the morning, I expect traffic jam. Right? That's the mindset. I just get on the freeway and say, oh, there could be traffic jam. There could be. It can happen. But that change, everything is fine. is one way of looking at it, but expecting that the change is coming is a good thing to manage our own emotions. Remove distractions. It's important that when we are in these situations, we tend to not focus on the issue, but we tend to focus on who is saying this, why this person is saying, what tone the person is using. Right? We think about more about everything else other than what the real issue is. Are we really solving a problem, or I'm just upset that you used that tone of voice? Okay, so can we take those as a distraction and then see what is this person is trying to communicate? A lot of times it happens, in a relationship, this is the key. Somebody may be saying that, I'm not going to eat tonight for dinner, the spouse, and the other person is already jumping in and say, oh, that means, you don't like my food. Tell me, okay? This comment comes back, right? And so that doesn't really help out there. And take time. Do not react. I want to talk about this. Do not react. But I want you and me to respond, not react. Okay? The reaction has to be left to the news media because they want reaction. They don't want anybody to respond. They'll go to the common man on the street and say, oh, this is happening, there's a lot of murders and homicide, what is your reaction? They want their reaction, they don't want their response. The reaction, when we ask somebody's reaction, what we're saying is that, tell me how emotionally charged you are. Tell me how you're feeling. Are you outraged? Are you angry? That's what we're asking. But in this case, when we take time, we don't want that. We want to be able to respond. Now, when I say that, it does not mean that we shouldn't feel the emotions that we feel, right? It's not that we have to become robots or we have to become, human with no heart and no brain. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that if we can manage our emotions, then our actions and the decisions we make is better. So that if we take time, if somebody is upset and say, hey, can I get back to you? But you don't have to tell that person and say, calm down. Because when you say calm down, that person gets more angry. Right? You can't tell me calm down. Right? That's exactly what happened yesterday in that conversation. Is that you don't tell me how we feel. Right? You don't come here and tell me how we feel. Right? Yeah. Because we can't turn around. But you just, in a situation, we don't tell anybody to calm down. And say, can you take a break? Can we get back to this tomorrow? Can we look at it later? Just take some time. And that certainly helps. And last one it says is identifying thoughts. If we can identify those thoughts, as we talked about, we can change it. So develop the skills and train the brain to start real time identifying those thoughts that's coming in that situation that could potentially trigger an emotional response which you can avoid from happening. Social awareness is very simple. It's just like you're being aware of yourself, we want you to be aware of other people. Right? Your husband, you're married for 30 years, and then I hear that they're separating. Well, what happened? So it's like 30 years, and I thought you knew each other and very well, but apparently not. So there is something going on there. So being aware of others' emotions and others' triggers and responses. Okay, if you know that somebody is short-tempered, if you know that somebody doesn't like a topic they don't want you to discuss, if you know that somebody is has a bias towards something, don't talk about it. Right? This is where we make a mistake, and we assume that I can come and talk to you about certain issue that's happening in the world, but I have no idea which way you are in that issue. So I may just throw myself out there, and then fire catches on me, and then we're all dead. Right? But instead, we want to know other person triggers are. And how do you know this? How do you develop these skills, right? So there are some strategies. Obviously, empathy. So you got to be in my shoes. All right, this is very comfortable, and only $9 in Costco.
We're all gonna go buy it.
All right, so you got to. That's what empathy is all about: being in someone else's shoes, and it's not sympathy.
Right.
Feeling sorry is a different thing. But I want all of us to feel in a situation how other person is feeling. So develop that empathy. I'm sure in the church you guys have a lot of this empathy and the service, and this is all is driven by the act of empathy. Now we don't understand a lot of times how the empathy works, but it requires a lot of practice. It requires being able to ask questions, and if you're able to manage yourself, then you have room for developing empathy. Otherwise, you're always being judgmental. You're always, angry. You're always reacting. There is no place in your brain to develop this empathy. So that's why once we know we have the ability to manage ourselves, then we can also start looking into the empathy. Active listening. We're talking about active listening. So, how many times we're all at fault? We are not listening. We're just hearing words. So, can we develop skills in active listening? Can we understand what the other person is saying? Can we reflect back? If this is what you said, this is what I understood. If we can actively listen, we can solve a lot of problems. Most of the times, we're not listening at all. And we're making assumptions. So developing those skills is extremely important so that we can be socially aware. Living in the moment. There is a lot of discussions about mindfulness that we talk about. And living in the moment is all about, if you're here watching this and listening to this, your brain has to be 100% here. Your brain has to be 100% here, observing this knowledge, watching your co-workers here, and how they are reacting, how they're responding, and just feel that moment here. Sitting here, don't worry about tonight's dinner. Don't worry about what you're going to eat for lunch tomorrow. Don't worry about next week's travel plan. But the brain is fast enough to do that for you. But your job is to put a break to it. And then say, stop thinking, okay? The travel comes next week, but I'm here listening to Jack. I want to pay full attention to this. Tell your brain that you can do that. It's hard at the beginning, but you can develop these skills. The reason I keep saying skill is because this is not a talent. This is not like you're born with naturally. This is something you can be trained, and it becomes a skill for you. Planning ahead. You plan events, you plan fundraisers, you plan collecting donations, right? What happens if you don't plan? Really doesn't happen. So why would you think that you can't plan for yourself internally? You want to plan for everything ahead. So if you're meeting someone, read about that person. If you don't know that person, ask about that person. Check something out and get yourself familiarized with it so that you can do that. Body language awareness. If you are speaking to someone and you can see that person's ears are getting red, you know that there's something that will come out in 10 seconds. Watch for it. So that you can regulate it. Right? Either you can stop talking or say, hey, let's go for a walk. You can take the person away. Something you can do, just watch for the body language, which is important. So, after mastering the self-awareness, self-management, and social awareness, it leads to how we're going to apply that in relationships. And you, just for a second, you think about it. You're not a master yet, but hypothetically, if you are highly self-aware of yourself, your emotions and your feelings, you're able to better manage that. At the same time, you're also aware of other person's emotions. How would the relationship look like? Think about the relationships that are not so good with you right now. Think about the relationship that's already broken. Think about the relationship you have no longer in contact with. Just think about what happened. Right? And I guarantee you, this is what happened. And how do we do this? Again, a few things I want to give constructive feedback. When that person is very angry at you and talking about it, saying that calm down, saying that I don't appreciate what you're doing, those are not feedback. All right, those are advice. Okay? A lot of people don't want to receive any advice. Right? The feedback in a situation like that is that I see that you are shaking. I hear a change in your tone. Right? Feedback has to be something you see, something you observe, but no judgment at all. Right? No advice at all. You want to be able to give some constructive feedback, but always follow up and say, hey, here is my feedback, but if you need any advice, please ask. But don't jump and give them advice right away. And we have seen this in other settings like Toastmasters. A lot of times when people are speaking in their evaluation, they'll say, hey, you need to speak up loud. Okay, that's an advice. But what you observe is you couldn't hear clearly. So your feedback is that, hey, so-and-so speaker, I was sitting at the back, I was not able to hear clearly. That is the feedback. But what other person needs to do is to speak louder or use a microphone is up to that person. But that's an advice. And we want to be careful because a lot of relationships fall apart because we think that we are giving a feedback to improve the other person's life. Instead, we are advising them and nobody wants advice unless they ask for it. Right? So this distinction is there. We want to acknowledge in any relationship, if anybody is upset, if anybody is displaying some emotion, please acknowledge. You don't have to say anything. You don't have to give any advice. If somebody says, I lost one of my grandmother or grandfather, just acknowledge that they're going through the sad situation, but don't jump in and say, oh yeah, I lost my grandmother too. Right?
Yes, people always do that.
So we don't want that.
Yeah.
The point here is acknowledge. It is their time. It is their time to talk. It is their time to grieve. My grandmother died 3 months ago. Again, I'm done with that. But this is not about me, but this is about them. So acknowledging their presence, acknowledging their feelings, acknowledging their emotions, it goes a long way in relationship. Otherwise, if you keep doing it 5 times, they don't realize that you're doing it. But 6th time, somebody will point out to the person and say, did you see Raham just giving advice? And then they'll go back and think, wait a minute, that's what Raham has been doing for the last 3 years. Hypothetically, this is exactly how this works. And feedback reception. As we are trying to give feedback to others, when others give us the feedback, we should take it positively. Okay? If somebody is trying to give you advice, please tell them that, please don't say, hey, don't give me any advice, right? With that tone. But instead, you can always say, hey, Raham, thank you for saying that, but is there any feedback from me?
Yeah, I'm giving you a yellow card right now. You have 5 minutes to finish up.
5 minutes?
Wrap it up.
I'm so sorry.
We are very much there.
Yeah.
How many minutes time?
We overdid the time.
Oh.
Yeah.
The use of why is the idea that you ask questions in such a way that you don't come across as a challenging kind of person. Right? You ask why to understand, not why to challenge or question the authority. That goes a long way in saying that, hey, why did you go for dinner? Well, can you explain me why you chose this place? That's a better way of managing. So here are 3 important takeaways. Okay? Thoughts create emotions. That's what we just learned. And thoughts can be changed. We also saw some examples that we can do that. And if we have a higher emotional intelligence, that means we can have a better relationships. So thank you so much. Thank thank you so much for listening, being an active and awesome audience. This was very fun for me and engaging, and I learned a lot. As I'm, it's not that I know everything, but just speaking and watching, I'm getting a lot of feedbacks. Body language to questions to comments and how you think. It's all great because I'm also learning and I'm also growing at the same time. So thank you for the opportunity for me to grow as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack, for this amazing lecture and training. It needs a lot of training. That's why we need another appointment. Thank you, Jack. We'll give him like some present to remember us. One of them says that delight yourself also in the Lord, and He shall give you the desire of your heart. So it's very God. And the other thing, you will like it, something from Egyptian culture, pharaohs.
I love it.
This not every day when you get your coffee, remember us. Little saying, but it express our feeling. Thank you so much for your coming.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Group picture, right?
Yeah, we need to take a picture, all of us. But listen, there is just one announcement. Our next meeting will be April 4th. And it will be like a group of discussion of Bible study about how to bear your cross. So it will go on the Passion Week. So that we will prepare ourselves to how to hold our cross and to follow our